Let's move on to topic number 4 tonight with Simone Biles bowing out of the Olympics. Man, really, what a disappointment. I know for all of our fans here in the United States and probably if you're a gymnastics fan worldwide to see Simone Biles have to bow out here. And she said it was for mental health issues. So what do you got on this, Pat?
Yeah, I mean, we've already been talking about the Olympics and how some of the stars, we mentioned Sha'Carri Richardson and her situation, and then, a couple of folks got COVID before they even went over there, including like Coco Gauff, and a couple of the golfers had to leave, Bryson DeChambeau, John Rahm. And now you have probably the face of the United States Olympics group is Simone Biles. She's known for being an Olympian, and now she has to bow out. So as a U.S. Olympics fan and as someone who likes to watch the Olympics and even watch gymnastics, I never watch gymnastics unless it's the Olympics. It's disappointing, but hearing what it's about, I think, is very important. We have to remember that she was one of the many gymnasts who was sexually assaulted by Larry Nessler, that dirtbag of a trainer from Michigan State who was helping out the Olympic team with the Carolis and everything like that. She was one of them that suffered through that. So when she goes back to the Olympics, I can't even imagine, anytime she steps on the mat in the gym, she's got to be thinking about that. So if it's mental health stuff, and she said it was, we all got to salute her for at least understanding that she couldn't go through this without having to take a break. And, maybe some people think she's quitting, or that's just stupid. But you just remember what she's been through and what all these other gymnasts have been through over the past couple decades after what that dirtbag did to all of them. That's what you got to have in the back of your mind especially when a gymnast comes out and says, I need to take a break. I got some mental health stuff going on. So, I'm disappointed to not see her at the Olympics anymore, but totally understand, or can at least sympathize with her, what she's going through. We all need to understand that is a huge part of these gymnasts' lives. And she's one of the older gymnasts now. Some of the younger ones didn't have to deal with that guy, so luckily for them. But herself and then gymnasts after her are older than her, like an Allie Raisman and even gymnasts older than Allie Raisman dealt with that guy. So, we're hoping that the generation of gymnasts after Simone Biles doesn't have to deal with this type of stuff, even though some of them will probably have mental health issues as well. But you got to keep in mind what they went through when something like this happens, where they have to bow out of the Olympics.
Yeah, no, you bring up a lot of great points. And honestly, I'm going to be like full 100% honest here. When I first saw this, I was critical of her. I'm not going to lie. I was so disappointed because it's like this would be like the equivalent of like on the Dream Team, Michael Jordan being like, you know what, I'm going to sit out. And that's literally the equivalent, because she is literally arguably the greatest gymnast of all time. I think she is the greatest of gymnasts of all time when you match it up to what all the things she's done to everybody else. So I was critical, being like, well, there goes our chances of gold. And sure enough, the team tried to rebound. They tried to bring it together. They fought hard, but it was silver medals at that point, kind of guaranteed, when your best all-around gymnast has to step out in the team competition. But then honestly, I took a step back and I looked at it myself, and I just started thinking about it. And I started thinking about, hey, we were supporting Naomi Osaka with her mental health issues, and Michael Phelps, and I saw Michael Phelps's interview, and he talked about, man, she's probably under a lot of stress right now, and Michael Phelps talked about the stress that he was having to deal with going into these future Olympics, already carrying all these gold medals around his neck. And so he said, we all handle stress differently, and this is the way she's handling it right now. And so when I saw that, it really made me step back and check myself and say, I think everybody, if you're being critical of her right now, you've got to step back and say, that's not the time for that. It's definitely not. It's the time to support her. She is one of our greatest gymnasts of all time. And like I said, man, another person that in these current games dealing with some mental health issues is Katie Ledecky. Honestly, she talked about the pressure going into the freestyle and then going into the 400 freestyle, the 2 in the 400. And, you know, she in the 200, she got the silver medal and lost to the Australian young gun. And then in the 400, she was off the podium. Luckily, Ledecky rebounded and won the gold in the 1500. But I think, you know, there you go. Look, think about it. Michael Phelps is arguably the greatest Olympian of all time, arguably. Katie Ledecky is close behind him. All right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And it's so those are two of the greatest Olympians of all time talking about how they've had to deal with it. And it's definitely an issue at that level. So why can't it be for Simone Biles as well? So I think we all need to support her going forward. And luckily, this isn't potentially the end because she still might compete on Sunday in the individual vault. So boy, would it be a great story for her to decide to come back and be a champion and show it on Sunday. But even if she doesn't, she's already, I believe, a champion enough for coming out and supporting these mental health issues and just saying, hey, we got to step back. And mental health is just as big as physical health and everything else. You need all of it together. And man, life is much important. We love sports here. Don't get us wrong. Sports is our lives, and that's why we're covering it. But life is much bigger than sports, and we like to just tie it all in together. So I don't know. We're definitely supporting her here, though, and supporting her going forward.
Yeah, and I think the other thing we got to remember, too, is that, you know, if she's not 100% geared up for this, then she's taking the spot of somebody else who is. And she's been there so many times. And this isn't an everyone gets the trophy segment here, but, like, you know, if she's not 100% ready to go, why not let somebody else jump in there and give it their 100% shot? You know what I mean? If she's not fully engaged, especially mentally, and then that's also when athletes get hurt. When you're not thinking clearly, when you're not 100% there, that's when you're a little sluggish. And our producer put up some of those tweets, and I couldn't quite see who the gymnast was. I think it was Dominique Moceanu, who did a somersault on the balance beam and then smashed her head on the balance beam. These gymnasts are doing this stuff. I mean, in the Olympics, they're doing it at like 14, 15, which is crazy. Yeah. They're not even adults yet, but they start this stuff with, you know, almost out of the womb, like when they're like 4 or 5 years old. So, you know, never mind what happened with Larry Nessler, which is just this most massive thing ever, one of the biggest sports scandals ever. Think about the mental abuse that these girls deal with growing up as gymnasts and having to go have a gymnast parent who's like on their case all the time about being a gymnast and all the hours and all that kind of stuff. And there has been discussions about how healthy it really is for these young girls to go through this gymnast thing, you know, for such a long time. So you add all that stuff up. By the way, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, and they're going overseas to a country that's having a tough time dealing with the pandemic. Yeah, there's going to be mental health stuff going on, and we're seeing that with these athletes right now. So that's going to continue to be a story going forward. Brandon, let's get your last thought on this one.
One quickly, honestly, if we're really supporting this mental health thing, we got to show more support to Sha'Carri Richardson. She specifically said she used marijuana because of her mental health and to support, and she had just lost her paternal mother, and she was using it because of that. So I'm just saying, don't knock her. You got to be supporting all these people for mental health issues.
Sure. And yeah, I think, you know, that's another conversation about her again that we've had in the past. So folks, if you want to hear about our opinion on Sha'Carri Richardson, go back a couple of weeks ago when that whole thing came down, when she got suspended because of the use of marijuana. Go back, go to our Comeback Sports channel, hit subscribe, check out that video where we talked about Sha'Carri Richardson, because there's a lot of different factors. But as you mentioned, Brandon, mental health was a huge part of that as well. So that's a good point by you. Folks, if you like this show, you're watching it right now on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page. That's Comeback Sports on YouTube. So subscribe to the channel, Comeback Sports. And then all the cut-ups that our awesome producer, Ben Kudo, puts together after the show, that'll all filter to your YouTube channel. You don't have to go search for it. It's just right there in your subscriptions.